he was talking about how he was using his knuckle to check the moisture.
That was me.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, and we were kind of earlier explaining in the weeks past how moisture meters have such a benefit, and we were just talking about how
I keep a moisture meter on me though.
Yeah, that's right. Tucked away right here. Check this out.
Photon.
So I thought right there on the spot, wait a second, there must be a way, or we could probably do an entire video on ways that we can find alternative methods instead of using some of these tools that are presented to us in the market. So that's where that's where the idea came from.
Moisture meter? Should we jump right into it?
Yeah.
The accuracy
knuckle deep
of your finger. I mean, the wind currently is blowing north in here.
Accurate, yeah.
North. And it's the same, I can tell you the exact percentage by putting my pinky into your soil.
Interesting. Interesting. Consider he's got fans right behind him blowing south.
I do. But I don't. In Canada, south is different. Okay?
Different side of the hemisphere.
But honestly, I'm goofing in that sense. But that's the downside of just using this alternative in the finger method versus the moisture meter method is I can't give you the exact precise amount, but I can tell you that it's moist enough that I've already watered and I don't need to water again today. That's the only issue. I can't crop steer like I could with a moisture meter to let me know exactly how much is there.
It's a great example. Yeah, you don't need a moisture meter. It's beneficial and can definitely help things out, make things a little bit easier for you by giving you that accuracy. But this episode's about, you don't actually need some of these gardening products. And I think a moisture meter is a perfect one. Use your hands, stick it down in there. Do the old technique to where is it bone dry that far down? How's the weight of the grow pot? You know what I mean? Does it feel light? You can just do it that way. You don't need to invest in a moisture meter. It's a great example.
Yeah, I like that. And the thing is it's not that we don't think you should have a moisture meter, because the reality is it might just make your life a little easier to have one, and it'll keep your hands clean. But we're thinking of people who might be in a scenario that they don't have access to these items. Maybe they're on a budget. Maybe they just simply can't get these items at their location because the world's changing. Products are changing. Science is evolving. Is it? And we can ask ourselves, do we really need this, or are we just paying too much? One of the things I kind of wanted to discuss off the top of my head was it's getting a little bit easier now to determine your light intensity. Back in the day, we used to have the rule of thumb when we were using HPS or metal halide that put your hand over your canopy, and if your hand is comfortable, your plant is comfortable. And that was generally in response to the heat. So it's not too hot in there, or the height is correct if your hand's not too intense. Now, you guys were sharing earlier that if you have an LED and you can't afford a par meter, there's apps for this.
Yeah, there's a Photon app that actually will work to give you a ballpark of the PPFD that you're using. The suggestion is that you want to wrap up or roll up a piece of paper or get some sort of rounded thing to make it so you have kind of like a, not a fisheye lens, but a more magnified lens to that, so that way there's not side light. It's more focused on what's coming down there.
Like a direct path.
Direct path, exactly the words. But that works. It's sufficient enough. It's going to give you the ballpark estimate. It may not be exactly perfect, but you're going to be able to find your range of noticing, well, my plant looks nice and happy here. Let me increase a little bit. Let me measure to make sure my increase isn't too high and detrimental to the plant growth, or too low and also detrimental to plant growth.
You don't need a par meter. You don't need to go out and spend.
Don't even need the app even, potentially.
You don't even need to spend $299 for the spot on meter, or maybe it's $399 for the spot on meter, $500 for the pulse par meter that comes with the other thing.
An Apogee
meter, $500 plus. You don't need to spend that money if you're looking to kind of dial in light or make sure your plants aren't too hot really at the canopy, like Pigeon said with the hand test. But you can just use a phone app. Save money there. Save a ton of money.
Phone app works decent,
hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Hundreds. Well, you could be spending on something else like genetics.
Or Stash Blend. And I think that's...
we got to throw that in there.
It's our brand. We're so passionate about it, man. I'm sorry if we come off with it, but I love it. And I feel like you need to love it, too, because it's amazing.
Stand by it.
Stand by it heavily. But that's the thing, is some things are vanity-type items, and some things are... they simplify the garden. Those are two different things. I feel like one thing that I wouldn't say is vanity, but it's kind of like you're keeping up with the cool kids, is fabric pots or cloth pots. And you don't necessarily always need to use a pot that is pre-made to be a plant pot. You can reuse random items. You can use buckets. I've seen people for years use 5-gallon Home Cheapo buckets, drilling holes right into them, even as they're orange buckets, not worrying about light penetration because for the most part, they're going to be good. Or black Lowe's buckets, which is black or blue Lowe's buckets.
Tubs of peanut butter, tubs of ice cream. I've seen people use those.
The
They
bottoms
repurpose
are 2
those.
liters and holes in it. Yep, I've seen people for their clones do a bunch of like Coca-Cola bottles, cut the tops, holes in it. You don't need plant pots. Does it look a little ghetto? Absolutely. But is it going to work?
You get points for ghetto-ness, for sure.
And reusing resources, being thrifty.
Yep.
You don't have to be a broke grower to be a thrifty grower or to be somebody who cares about the earth. And in that sense, recycle has been proven to be a little, maybe not proven, but has been said to be a little. So recycle at home. Clean it, use it, reuse it. I mean, I've been using cheap little 1-gallon pots from this flower store for like a decade, and I still continue to use them. And then I go to the store and I'll buy other pots just to use those reused pots. Just like when you get the lunch meat in the plastic containers, and then you have that plastic Tupperware container, you're like, I'll use it for some random shit I don't care to destroy. Like if it's a bad thing and I might have to throw it away, I guess this is the tub I'll use. But it makes it so you can reuse these items and you don't have to keep up with the Joneses with the coolest, best pots. Is it more advantageous to get something that can air prune your roots? Absolutely. But can you get away with using, homemade pots, essentially? Absolutely. No question.
Yeah, so we actually have a short list here. We talked about it real quick. So
I got
bust towards the list. You got something off the top of your mind?
Yeah, the aloe. I remember we were discussing aloe.
Yeah.
Aloe. Yeah.
So instead of using a cloning gel.
Instead of using a
cloning
rooting
gel
hormone of any sorts, I prefer myself a powdered hoarding.
Powdered
Rooting hormone. Wow, I blended both
Hoarding
of those
hormone.
words together. Basically because of shelf life, and you can kind of eliminate that if you're running aloe as a companion plant. We've talked about that in weeks prior.
To water that into the natural rooting hormone.
Yeah.
I think the other side, though, the advantageous side of using a clone gel, or especially the VPS one, is great. I love that I can use the tip that just goes perfect. Don't waste anything. But you can do the same thing with aloe in a sense of dipping it, chunking it, and making it work. It doesn't stick on quite as good as some of the other gels I've noticed, but it works. Oftentimes people, if they're using an aeroponic cloner, they'll put that in the aeroponic cloner with it.
Makes sense.
This FTS clip was brought to you by AC Infinity, leaders in garden innovation. Use discount code TheStash15 at checkout to save some money on your order.
From the Stash Podcast.